Selbst eingewandert oder in zweiter Generation hergeboren oder auch hierher geflüchtet. Bei Ankommen spielt vorwiegend Fluchtmigration eine Rolle, insbesondere infolge des Krieges der Syrien und Ukraine. Fast jede Viertel in Deutschland hat eine Einwanderungsgeschichte, aber wie willkommen, divers oder auch inklusiv ist die Gesellschaft für Leute, die hier einkommen. Herzlich willkommen zu Unfiltered Podcast, die zweite Episode des Migrantinnen- und Geflüchteten-Redaktion des Bantaba Academy of ALEX Berlin. Das monatliche Podcast ist eine Reihe von und für Migrantinnen und Geflüchteten, auch alle, die an unseren Themen und Entwicklungen interessiert. Mein Name ist Darum. Zusammen werde ich heute über das Thema Ankommen in Deutschland sprechen. Zu Gast ist die wunderbare Ara, die ist Frauen- und Queerrechtsaktivistin aus Kenia. Sie wird auch meine heutige Co-Moderatorin sein. Herzlich willkommen, Anne.
Vielen, vielen Dank.
Not all people with a migration history arrived in Germany voluntarily. Some are looking for work and a better life. Some simply want to study and stay. Others come here to find protection from war or persecutions. Almost a quarter of people in Germany have direct or indirect biographical roots abroad, and the trend is rising. However, arriving, especially refugees, but what role does arriving or arrival play in the development of the German society? How diverse and inclusive is it for people? Welcome to the Unfiltered Podcast. My name is Nima Judama. Today, I am with Anne. So Anne, like I said, we will be talking about arriving in Germany. You arrived like 2.5 years ago, if I am right. And since then have been like really active in supporting or fighting for the rights of refugees, migrants, especially queer and feminists. Like, how is your experience in arriving? How was it like for you?
Wow. So I've been here. It was 2 years on August the 3rd.
Okay.
2 years since I came to Germany, and it's been quite an experience. I could not have predicted how this was going to be. One of the first things that I usually say that shocked me, for example, is I never realized at home how black I am, you know? I never realized my skin color. But my arrival here, one of the first things I had to realize was, wow, I am black. And you know, like when I would go into the trains, people would actually stare at me and I'm like, do I have something on me? What's wrong with me today? And then over time I came to realize, it's because I'm black. And then it's just, I don't even know how to explain this, but this is my personal experience. So anyway, I came to Berlin and then I went to Eisenhüttenstadt. I am from Kenya, so this is where our asylum procedures are processed. And so I went to Eisenhüttenstadt, and in Eisenhüttenstadt, I met a number of people, actually, who connected me to community, and one of them was International Women's Space. So currently, I am volunteering at International Women's Space. Actually, I'm working with International Women's Space, and this is a political, feminist, anti-racist group that is based in Berlin. It was founded during the Oplatz movement in 2012. Mm-hmm. And so these are people who have really been to the fight in the last, let's say, 11 years. And so they would come do lager visits. And in this case, they came to Eisenhüttenstadt, and I got to meet them. And this has been my experience. This is how I got into this fight. So I have met people with quite different experiences when it comes to their arrival, and I can share this as we continue speaking, but this has been my little personal experience and the thing that I like to say the most, how black I am.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to take it up from there. This is very interesting. You say, oh, I'm black. You just realized that you were black. Like some people, if you tell them, like, how is it like arriving in Germany? Yes, black count, but most of them would like, oh, I'm a refugee, or I am an asylum seeker, oh, because I am a migrant. But in your case, it's more of like being a black. Mm-hmm. How was it? Where does the blackness, how do you realize that, okay, I am black? Is it just because people are just staring at you, or do you receive any, I don't know, contradictions to your color or so on?
So I have so many examples to give, but also I would want to give many other experiences. And with this, you mentioned Ukraine during your introduction.
Exactly. Yeah.
And before the Ukrainian war happened, the war in Ukraine happened, there was already a classism issue, because it's always a class issue. And we would love to say that we are progressed and we do not see color. Sometimes we say that. I do not see color, or I treat everybody equal. I am not racist. But the thing is, the way society is set up, and even the systems here, the asylum system and the society itself, color matters. The fact that I came in with this skin color, there are so many things that I cannot get. For example, accommodation. If I was, even my name, for example, because if I apply for something and my name does not read something, it reads something foreign.
If your name doesn't sound German, Skruder,
yes, then I don't get the privileges, you know. And if I walk into a store, someone can basically judge me, or even an office, judge me based on this, just this. And even in the lagers, like when I was there were not so many Africans, and we would be stared at, and we would be, actually, there's this incident when we were in Eisenhutenstadt, whenever we'd have bananas for lunch. When the Africans, there's a group of
you have
children,
bananas for lunch?
Yeah, bananas for lunch, like as an extra, like with a dessert, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
They give us bananas, and the Africans would walk up.
How can you give banana for lunch, especially to Africans, right?
Oh my God, I know.
We would say, I remember one of my colleagues would be say, I need my rice.
I wanted my traditional ugali so much, oh my God. But it gets worse. So when we would go to pick this bananas from the mess, the children would actually start laughing and pointing at us. Look at the monkeys taking bananas.
And they're refugees as well, right?
Yeah, they're refugees as well. It's just, even in this setup, we are all housed in the same place. We are all using the same facilities. But even in this case, there's still a hierarchy. There's still a class issue.
So that means this class issue is not just from bureaucratic aspect, but then is also within the refugees.
It's also,
themselves.
Yeah.
This is
it's
interesting.
also within. And then when the Ukraine war happened, then the war in Ukraine happened, then it became worse, because then we realized that there are good refugees and bad refugees, you know, and anybody who is of a different skin tone, the darker you are, the worse. You are the tier, the bottom of that tier. Yeah. And like you'd have, one of the projects that International Women's Space started taking part in was invitation and dealing with the BIPOC women from Ukraine, because they were not getting the same treatment as the asylum seekers who are of a different, you know, they were not from third country nationals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to know, like, when we say arriving, it might, like, have different connotations. So how is arriving to you? How will you define that? How has it been for you?
You know, I always feel like I arrived physically for quite a while, actually. For a while, I was just here physically, but I was never really welcome, you know.
Mentally not.
Mentally, you know, socially, I was not acceptable. I'm still even trying to fit in, you know, even as a queer refugee, because I came here seeking refuge from persecution, because in my country, I'm persecuted for being queer, and I am an outspoken person, I'm an activist. And when I came here, even in the queer scenes, I don't fit.
Oh, yeah, because you're black, right?
Yeah,
oh,
I'm still, there's no niche. So I have arrived, but have I really arrived? I don't even know. I am here, I am making noise, but what's interesting is after I joined International Women's Space, someone came up to me, because through International Women's Space, then I have been able to get myself into spaces where many refugees have not been able to get into. And someone told me, you know what? I was intimidated by you. I was afraid to come talk to you because I thought you were actually born in Deutschland. I was like, really? Yeah. This is good. So I don't know if I am arriving, but I am glad that there is community that is making me settle and be able to fight for people. So it is arrival in the sense that I found a community and I found a purpose. I'm able to share how it is in the system, because not many people are brave enough to do this, and I can be the voice for people, and this is just absolutely for me. So arrival, not really, but I hope that one day I will feel like I am part of the society, you know.
Yeah, so like, let's go back a bit to the asylum camp. You said like it's always a matter of status and classism. together with these bureaucratic issues and so on. And as the other people coming from the other part of the world, we would say, especially being a Black person. So I think we always, from my experience, most of us sees it as maybe not just really being a Black, but maybe because I am from so-and-so a country. Right. Now, for example, I am from Gambia, and as a Gambian seeking asylum, forget it.
True.
So in this case, we don't really realize that we are Black. What we realize is we are from Gambia.
I feel you.
So I think it's different. So in this case, you see the beachten, like the administrative people, being more in terms of status and classism, giving more privileges to other refugees. But then, of course, as well, other refugees thinking, maybe not just so Black, but when it comes to education as well, you could also feel that they think they're a bit whatever. I've experienced this, but I think it depends on the person's talent and experience and how you saw stuff. So the moment they realize, okay, your status is even... So then there becomes a bit of understanding. I feel you, I get you, I know how hard it is, how difficult it is, trying to fit in, trying to belong, trying to arrive. Like you said, I arrive physically, but not mentally. I think this is happening to most of us. And then, you know, also the issue of, like, what does it really like arriving? Right. As a person seeking asylum, I think you should be able to really arrive because, like you said, you have to leave your country because of persecution issues. And every human has the right to move, freedom of movement, to migrate, to seek for protection if it's not availed to you from other places. And if you are, should we say, if you are denied this rights, because it's somehow like this, both from the bureaucratic point down to the society. Now you talk about refugees. How is the society? Is it welcoming? Is it diverse as we think it is or we see it?
Not quite. I would say that even one of the biggest fights that we have as international women's space, one of the things that we hope to abolish is the LAGA system, because it's one of the ways that the system itself isolates us. Like within international women's space, there is a group that I belong to, a working group that is made up purely...
Before of course, we will talk about this, like the issue of abolishing the LAGA. This is not set up by the society, right?
No, this is not. This is set up by the system.
By the civil society, set up by the system.
The system.
Are they encouraged to do this because the society doesn't want to have them together? Or
in some cases, because then we have cases where these laggers are actually very isolated, and most of them are in Brandenburg. And one of the things we do is visit these laggers. And sometimes we go to places, like we were in Neuruppin the other day, and we learned that the community had been for a while protesting, a while back. They were protesting that they do not want to have a lagger in this space. You have places like in Eisenhüttenstadt where the community itself is not happy to have people. They protest. Many times they go in front of the camp itself and protest and say that these people are taking our tax money, these people are abusing us, these people are coming in with crime, let us get rid of them. So there are many cases where the community does not want it. But there is also a case like in Wustermark. In Wustermark, there's plans to build a lager. And there's a part of the community that wants this lagers to happen, does not want this to happen. They want the people to actually be distributed into the community so that they can have better integration, and they're having some plans in place to at least welcome them. Their first point is to try and stop the building of this lager, because then it's an isolation and it's in one building. But it's hard to fight the state. So their other plan is, in case this doesn't work, then we would like to welcome. So it's good to see that there's some communities that would rather have the people within them. But in many cases, many of the communities where the lagers are do not like that the lagers are there.
But you mentioned something like the community does not welcome these people, does not want them to be there because they think they are using their tax money, they come with crimes, I don't know, all those discriminatory words and approaches that they would have. How do you feel if you hear that, oh, Anne is here to collect my tax money?
Oh my God. It irates me. It just, you mentioned something about when people realize the talents and skills and maybe educational level that you have, then they get shocked and maybe sometimes treat you with respect. And when you are as loud as I am.
You.
Oh, doubt you, yeah.
I have been doubted all my life. Are you sure you're from Gambia?
I also speak English sometimes and people are like, are you sure?
Exactly.
Are you sure
your English is so good. How do you make it? Like, we are colonized by English people, so what do you expect?
Yes. It's just it's ridiculous, I tell you. But yeah.
I mean, it's actually quite interesting. But I think also, yes, we have to be fair here. Like the society, when we say, I think we are including everybody, including fellow migrants and refugees. Because I have been in conversations, I mean, private, where I have seen people from my country will be like, "Nee, this is not fair. This person is receiving tax money, the tax that I am paying." I mean, not as a refugee, but we've seen some migrants that will arrive and just having babies. And the state will be paying the babies, and they will receive tax money. And some Africans felt this is so unfair. Because you're also making babies, but still you're working. And that work that you were doing is the tax money they're using to pay Anne and her kids. Anne is just there, yeah, I'm taking care of my kids. So
this was quite a debate.
It's really interesting. So I think if we want to blame or point fingers at the white society, we should also look within us. Because it's always still a topic, and I'm like, okay, this is quite interesting.
Yes.
Right? I mean, for me, it's fine. I'll work and pay my tax. Whoever it goes to, it's your problem. But honestly, I thought it's really unfair if you should not work, if you are able to work. I mean, for asylum seekers, obviously, at some point you cannot work because the law doesn't allow you.
Yeah.
Or you even have a refugee status, maybe you can't work because whatever reason you can't find a job of your choice, or you're not just able to work because of whatever health issues, this is fine. But yeah, it's good to pay tax. Like I said, for me, you pay tax, you have it at some point because you might go jobless or something might happen, and you. Like in Africa, we say, how do you call it? Osusu, you know what I'm saying?
No, maybe
it's a different language from West Africa is Osusu. So like, this is where women come together and monthly pay money to someone, and at the end they collect it and give it to somebody else.
What you call it, chama.
Okay.
I think we all have it, table banking.
Every African have it.
Yes.
Actually, even in Europe, they do it.
We still do it because the labor market here, we cannot access it so much. And so sometimes we save up and, table banking.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. When I see people, I'm like, you people are still in Africa, right?
But I find that our mothers or the people who came up with this, because it's mainly the women who do this.
Makes sense, right?
They are feminists, in their way. Yes, it's women empowerment. We've always been this.
Yeah, wow, that's interesting. So at the beginning, you mentioned something like culture shock. You were shocked because you thought, okay, it's my skin and I haven't seen it arrive. It's because of my skin. What specific was a culture shock for you? Of course, it's part of, is it a culture being a black or white? I don't know.
I don't even know anymore.
I don't think so.
Everything we try to claim it as our culture.
What's your culture shock? What has been that thing that you thought, okay.
I think it's just the everyday racism, because it's thought to be a very progressive
So racism is culture, or?
No, I don't even know if I can call it that. It seems like it has become a bit common. We even joke about it. I see memes, for example, about, this is why I like mentioning this thing about staring. I see memes a lot on the internet joking about people staring at you in the U-Bahn and whatnot. It's just, I don't know, it has become a thing. It's almost like a culture. People will always stare at you in the U-Bahn. People will always stare at you in the S-Bahn and whatnot. But it's just a little everyday racism, small things, because it's supposedly a progressive place, but you could be crossing the road and someone tries to run you over, maybe like in Eisenhüttenstadt. Yeah, it happens. So, or when people try to catch the bus and this is a woman with a Kinderwagen and the driver will drive off. And, there's so many.
Yeah, that's normal, but I think you hardly see such in Berlin. This is really happening in villages, right?
No, weirdly sometimes in Berlin. That is what shocks me because it's supposedly very cosmopolitan
so
and whatnot.
For me, I haven't experienced that.
What was your shock, yeah?
My shock, it's interesting. So my culture shock was, I think, people being vegan and vegetarian.
Oh my God.
I've even wrote an article about this because, I came and every young person you see, oh, ich bin Veganerin, ich bin vegan. Like, what is going on here?
Oh my goodness.
So for me, it was really interesting. So then I'm like, in Africa, who is a vegan or vegetarian? So you are only a vegetarian or a vegan, let's say vegetarian. You're not even a vegetarian because you don't even know you're a vegetarian.
Yes.
Only if the doctor says, oh, you have diabetes or you have
so
hypertension.
Don't eat meat.
Don't eat meat, don't eat too much.
You automatically turn into a vegetarian. You don't even name yourself as such.
Exactly. So I came here, every corner there is a restaurant of vegetarian.
Vegan, and bio foods and all these things.
One of my colleagues would jokingly said, the Germans, even their cupboard is bio cupboard.
That's the thing, almost everything. Some things are ridiculous, like, how is this bio? But okay.
Oh, no, but even we refer some of them like, that's a bio German, so be careful.
Oh my goodness, it reminds me of something. One of my biggest shocks was Sundays, how quiet Sundays are. That I did not expect because my first Sunday here, I was like, okay, let's go eat. It's like, oh my God, why are the shops closed? I was so depressed because I did not have anything to eat, and the next Monday was a holiday, I think.
Oh God, you were starving. For me, like Sundays are going to the beach.
Yes.
Having barbecue.
Was it like that in Gambia also?
It's like that in Gambia. We call it Sunday beach, so it's picnic time, it's barbecue time, it's fun time, and Sundays is that for us.
Yeah, for us too, family time.
I came here, and it's like, oh, okay. You have to sleep. Because, if you don't have a family, what do you do?
What do you do?
So for me now, Sunday is cleaning, cooking, eating, and sleeping. Okay, interestingly, and another culture shock I have, I think it's also funny, is the snow.
Okay.
I learned that now Kenya, you guys are having snow.
In some parts, small.
I'm sorry, in West Africa, we'll never have one. It's the hottest. So for me, it was like, I used to see the snow on TV, and it was interesting, fascinating, right?
Okay.
So I came, and this thing, I came almost in the middle of summer. So then all of a sudden there was snow after a month or two. And then I would wake up and see everywhere white. And it doesn't matter, you'll have to go out to school.
Yeah, you still have to go to school, you have to go to work or whatever.
And if this thing is dropping, and I'm like, oh my God, what white thing is coming up? And I remember I was calling my grandma, this white thing. And she's like, what is that? It wasn't really a shock for me. I think it was like more of funny.
Okay.
Interesting how it is like, and it's also interesting to me when I see people like, we're going ski diving or we're going to the snow and play. I'm like, it's cold. How do you do that?
I was about to ask you, did you ever just roll in the snow and throw snowballs and stuff?
I've never tried it because I thought it's so cold.
You have to allow yourself to be a child sometimes.
Actually, I think I don't find it, honestly.
Wings, angel wings.
Honestly, I don't find it interesting.
Actually, it's also too cold for me anyway. It's beautiful to look out. It's white. It's a white blanket. It's beautiful, but it's too cold.
And also, what is interesting or a bit shocking is that for us in Africa, if it's raining, you hardly go to work because it's raining. But here,
everything has to go on. Right? There's never an excuse that it was raining, I couldn't make it to the meeting.
Yeah, or we floated, we would say it. Of course, where I came from, it's like a bit down, so...
you say it flooded and nobody can...
Obviously, it's always flooding.
The perfect excuse, when nature gives you excuse.
Yeah, it's okay, so I wanted to, let's talk about the differences of arriving. I think it might be quite the same if a white person should travel to Africa.
This is the amazing
Let's say an
thing.
Underdeveloped country.
Okay.
The culture shock might be there. Because obviously maybe you don't, of course, everyone speaks English almost, but adapting to their food. Before we go there, how about the food?
My God.
Have you?
Luckily, again, I love community and I love family. Like I love the Kenyan family and the African family, actually. When I go to Eisenhüttenstadt, I found fellow Africans who actually made a plate of rice and meat for me. So at least I didn't have to eat because the food was terrible in Eisenhüttenstadt. And I think
in asylum comes the food.
No, but generally also outside, I don't like very much Dutch food. I tend
You're on
to.
camera, right?
I know. So, but yes, once in a while I like my brochen, I guess. That's about it. And doner from here to there. But the food is also, I'm here to get.
Why
used
is
to
it that
really.
it's a problem, like, let's say, Africans to really adapt to the food?
The food, I don't know. Even when I buy
because
something bio, I still don't feel like it's from my mama's farm or something.
It doesn't matter.
No, I don't know. Maybe
Bio
I'm looking for the food in my mama's food.
But I mean, it's like, I've asked myself this question, it's like, are we, because we are too deep-rooted to the rice or frying stuff also?
This is something
I'm not really a rice type that would eat rice every day. I just can't afford that. But I've seen people, like guys, I would see them wake up at 12 midnight and cook rice.
I think it connects you to home. Because there's this thing that in International Women's Space, there's a Kenyan tea, chai, that we love to make. And whenever someone comes to take this tea, they feel like they're home, you know, especially if it's with the Kenyan tea leaves. I think it's a way of trying to connect with
What's the Kenyan tea leaf?
Like, there are quite a number, so I would not market any of them. But we have really good tea, I must say. Everybody should try the tea and coffee from Kenya. So, that is, I think it's a way of connecting. It's remembering, because we also come together to cook, and many of that, I do not think there's a time we've cooked food that's not African. When we come together to cook, even if we are not only Africans, because the group is made up of more than, but it's communal, because you know how it is with us. Back home, we cook together, and it's always huge amounts of food, and we eat together, and you tell stories over food, and so I guess we are trying to find a connection.
It's interesting. I was so how is it like? I mean, like I said, maybe if a white person should go to Africa, of course, might find it weird or a bit difficult to connect quickly to the food, especially to the culture and so on. Mostly they're tourists. But how is it like, I'm not sure we've experienced it, like going back home. I think if you've been here for a while and then you go back home at some point, you feel like you were just arriving.
Different, yeah.
Honestly, you feel like you were just arriving. You feel like a lot has changed. You feel like, I don't know, listening to many experiences, right? You feel like, oh, okay, this is different. You feel like a tourist at some point, I think. So this has been the experience of people, because they will tell you, oh, God, it's so different.
When I go back now, after.
If you should go to try that. I mean,
hopefully I get to someday. I don't know. Right now, I am too loud for my government, I guess, as it is. So, but hopefully someday I would love to.
That's the disadvantage of being too loud for your government.
For everyone.
I mean, I'm listening to different experiences. This is what they would tell you. Like, it's not just so easy to connect. It's like reconnecting. It's like re-arriving. It's like it's been new, and people see you as, oh, it's a bit special.
I want to say it's classism, I think.
I mean, within your own family.
Yeah, but it's classism, because then there's always this concept that if you've lived abroad, then you're of a different class.
Exactly.
And I wanted to say, I have not had the experience, of course, as a white person visiting the other countries, but in my experience of how foreigners are welcome in our countries, they are owed. They're welcome with awe, and except for a few people maybe who might try to con them here and there, but it happens in every country.
No. I mean,
then what I mean is, like,
good.
Culturally,
that's what I'm
the
also
reception
talking
is good.
about.
Yeah.
Culturally, of course.
Yeah, the reception is much better, because class.
No, which is, I mean, even us as Africans, like, if I do travel around, so if I, for example, I'm in different other African countries, I'd be like, oh, that looks so different. Oh, the food.
And how is the reception, though?
Amazing. I mean, so far the experiences I had is just amazing.
Okay.
I mean, it's different from being a white tourist, because you quickly connect. The difference is maybe it's just east west, northwest, you know, and maybe the food is also a bit different. Because West, we have like a bit of more similar than if you should go to
East Africa, then it's a totally different.
Not totally, but there are huge differences, I think, right? So, I mean, like, I've been in certain countries around West Africa, and you could realize that it's more or less the same. Let's say Gambia, Senegal is 100% the same.
Okay.
And Guinea, maybe about 90–80%, so around the surrounding. But then Nigeria and Ghana, few of them. But then, okay, you go to Sierra Leone and you see that how they cook their jollof rice or how they cook their peanut soup. It's totally different from ours. So you could see this difference. And then you go to East Africa, you see...
Ugali.
You guys don't really... You really have... I've been to Rwanda and there is no really like fish like us. I think it has to do with... Yeah, I mean, this was my experience. So, but then, you know... As a new person arriving, let's generalize. Let's say first an asylum seeker. How do you think what could do to best inform yourself? Quickly get involved.
I think one of the challenges I faced, especially like in Eisenhutenstadt, is the lack of resources or even information, or even the information when it's given, again, because of racism and stuff, then people filter the information they want to share, or they fail to help you, even the social workers. So I think I would love for someone, this is why I feel like my purpose, at least I found a purpose in this, because I did not have someone to guide me in the initial steps to give me information, and this is what was lacking. And I would want to say that the system should be able to provide it, but the truth is it's not going to happen today, because even if we change the system is in place, there are some resources that can be given, some information, but the people who are responsible for this, who are the state actors and whatnot, then they do not disseminate this information, and there's this gap that we as the civil society and we as the people have to fill. And I feel like what I would have loved to have is a sense of community when I arrived and guidance before I got to do my interview. But this is what I am able to provide now. So like with the lager visits, what we try to do is visit the lagers as often as possible and try to get to the women before they're disseminated. Like we go to the larger camps, like Eisenhutenstadt and Wunstorf, where the processing is happened, before they're disseminated into Berlin and Brandenburg. This way we are able to at least reach them, hopefully before they do their asylum processes, and then we can give them information on lawyers and whatnot, you know, some small things that create a very, very big difference. Because there's a lot of information, if I had had it before, my asylum case would have been handled a lot differently, you know, as a queer refugee, for example. There's some
but I think there are disadvantages that, and that has to do within us. Because, of course, in every Basooks or every asylum camp, there are volunteers that will volunteer to support. But I've seen in some cases, like the asylum seeker, him or herself, would not share the information or would not share the exact information because you think, I don't know if this person is working with government, if it's just voluntarily, where is this person taking my information? I've seen this. So in this case, you were not better informed. Because maybe the person did not know how to help you, might not want to be seen that is forcing to get information and so on. So I've seen a lot of cases where people think, no, I'm not going to share my story or say a different story.
I think
the trust.
Their trust. And I want to say...
In this case, I think the trust, and also maybe you guys might have an advantage because maybe it's a black person talking to a black person.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to say.
So you could speak in your language as well. So this could be a bit different. But if you're just seeing a white person talking to you, a German, and you know a German is to decide on your case. So obviously you think, no, I'm not sure if this is really right or not. So in this case, I think it's a bit difficult to inform yourself. But aside that, what do you think could be alternatives to actually one could inform him or herself, not just through the community, because it's not every community that is open. It's not every community that wants to support. What could one do?
Research. I would want to say the simplest thing, although this is sometimes a challenge because in the lagers maybe they don't have access to the internet. But if anybody is able to get access to the internet, please inform yourself, because one of the problems that we have, as you say, we could even disseminate this, we could share this information, but then whoever shares or chooses not to share it then will maybe choose to share some wrong information or share half of it. And so even when you get information from your colleagues, what I would advise is research. Because some of these things that are low and whatnot are also available on Google or whatnot, you know. And there are some you might get from speaking to people who've experienced the system, who've been there, and that this helps, and the community comes in, the grassroots. But what you could also do is just inform yourself. Because in many cases, as an asylum seeker, I would want to say it's not so easy, really, it's not. Yeah. Because once you're in the camp, you don't understand the language. This is the biggest problem, language barrier. You do not understand the language, and probably there are no classes in this facility. And while you're still in the asylum process, or even before you start it, in many cases, people are not allowed to go to school until maybe they go into the Heims. And so this barrier is usually a big problem. So I would say it's not very easy to do it, but one is try to use the apps that are there to learn a little bit of Deutsch. Use some of this to also translate your documents maybe, but also if you could, because it helps to be a little bit informed, as opposed to letting someone do all of it for you. So you could read it yourself a little bit, then maybe go to a social worker. But the thing is also, in every society and in every setting, there's always at least one person who is helpful. In some cases, you might find someone, maybe one person in Eisenhüttenstadt, one person in Wunsdorf, that could actually share with you. And I think one of the things we could also do is, because I want to say inclusion and representation. This is a thing that works with us for the grassroots organizing that we do. Because when we present ourselves as we are people who've actually been through the process or are still in the asylum process, have been in these lagers, know what it is like to live in these lagers, are probably still living in lagers in other places, then we establish trust better, as opposed to when we have a white person, a German or whatever, or a migrant coming to speak, we don't have the same experiences. And sometimes even a migrant, like a migrant who is not BIPOC, might not be the right person to speak to refugees. We both have migrant histories, yes, but we have different experiences. And I think in cases, yes, we have a lacking. We don't have enough people probably to do the grassroots. But what I would also say is maybe people could educate themselves on the intersectionalities of this other whatever. So in cases where you are a person who can provide service, please inform yourself on what it is like, a little bit, on the intersectionality of being a black person on top of being a refugee and all these other things. Yeah.
What do you think government could do better in terms of hosting people arriving in Germany, refugees, migrants, asylum seekers? Let's say asylum seekers. You work with people in the lager, you've experienced it yourself, and you've seen how good or bad the situation is, how the lager is. What could be a better alternative? What do you think government could do to say, at least it's better? Or is it already better?
Not quite. I wouldn't say it's better, especially with the classism that is there. It is not so easy to erase.
Let's say social amenities. Of course, classism, we've talked about this, and we know this is existing, and it will never, right? We will always discuss about this. Let's say providing social amenities and access to basic human rights issues.
In terms of this?
In terms of this, accommodation and all that. How is this? How better it could be?
Again, I will go back to classism, but then in this case, I would want the government, because there's some systems that are already in place that are meant to provide these services, but we are lacking in the sense that the gap is that there are racists, these systems are there, yes, but then there are racist people acting in these spaces, or whatever it is that is acting in these spaces, such that only a certain people then get through. If you're a Ukrainian with blue eyes and blonde hair, you get through. If you came from Ukraine, but you're a BIPOC, then you don't get through. It's something really, really societal. I think it's from many ways, from society, but also the government could hold people responsible, because there's also cases where you report cases of this everyday racism, even blatant ones in offices and whatnot. But what they do is probably move this person, transfer them from this office to the other, because then you'll hear of a story in a different Landkreis, for example, or something, you know. So accountability, real accountability, but also reparation. reparation, and accountability, prosecution, holding people accountable, because we document. It's not that we don't know that refugees are being mistreated, they're being discriminated, they're dying. It's not that we don't know it. It's not that it's not being shouted enough. It is. But what are we doing about it? Because increasing police presence, for example, does not necessarily mean that it is secure for someone of my color, because I am still being racially profiled. So someone will stop me and harass me, saying that they're trying to keep me safe, but are they really? They will watch another white person sell drugs right there. I was just walking by, but because I have dreadlocks, I am of dark skin, I will be searched. How is this making the society better? Then it's just making everyone else angrier, and it is just so many, but also policies, really. I think we need better policies in place, and we need to abolish lagers, because real integration is not placing homes in spaces where people can actually go and attack, because there's also increase of right-wing extremism and violence, for example. And when then we'll have a story like Rostock, whereby a lager it is easier to attack a lager when it's in one space. If it is real integration and isolation, the labor market, put policies in place where we can, because the way it seems right now, it's like if you, especially BIPOC refugees, the only options you have for the labor market are very slim. And you have to be loud and really political and really fight to get to do other jobs that are not about cleaning or whatnot. But we have many other skills. Just treat us all equal. Like, equity is what we're looking for. The truth is, we'll never be all equal. We can't be equal, but equity. You know, what you provide for the white Ukrainian refugee, provide it for the other ones as well, or the asylum seeker. And also consideration of other, you had mentioned something about coming from Gambia, then you just know that you are never going to get, yes. It is the same with Kenya. If you come from Kenya, you are never going to, this is what they tell you, you are never going to get protection because Kenya is a safe country. Yeah. But then there are many cases where it's not safe. Yeah. If you look at the LGBT cases, in Kenya, for example, there's a lot of death, there's so much going on, but Kenya
I was going to ask you that being an African, we know we are too culturally deep-rooted, we're too traditional, we're too religious. And then, speaking of being an LGBTQ person or activist for these persons, how is it like in Kenya, and then having to leave, arriving here? How is the perception there? Is it welcoming? Of course, I know it's dangerous, might be, but how is the perception of the people? How welcoming is it?
As an activist in Kenya, or how do you mean? Or being queer?
Being queer, yeah.
It is not easy. And I lived in the coastal province for the last 2 years before I came here. And this is one of the places where it has become quite a hotspot. Nairobi, for example, is not so bad, because then if you go to some exclusive spaces, if you have some money, you go to some exclusive places, you can hide yourself. But you can't openly walk around and just show all these things, you know. But in Mombasa, it was a bit more. Mombasa is always known also for a lot of sex trade with the beach boys and the tourists who are coming there. And it is a little bit accepted, but not so much. Like, the sex trade is accepted, but then two women walking and whatnot, we always got verbally assaulted. Some of us got physically assaulted, some of us, and one of the things that we also don't talk about is corrective rape. Yeah. It's one of the things that really happens, because many times we are told we will teach you, we will make you straight. And sometimes women die as a result of this, and trans women as well are being killed. So the reception is not so good by the community. But what I have learned about humanity and people is that we tend to always form a small community where we are able to do this. And this is how when I went to the coastal province, I found a community then that I could organize with. So it wasn't easy, not at all. And as of now, they have dispersed, and some of my colleagues had to go live in safe houses in different parts of the country because of how heated it is. But, so the reception is still a very foreign thing. It's a white thing. And right now it's even worse because of this issue with Uganda, and also our country, actually. Our president also saying all these issues with giving aid and human rights and all these conversations, and people like imposing their immorality on us Africans, and so the whole country is uproar on an uproar, and especially Christians. You know, Kenya is a very religious country, I would say. Majority is being Christian, the coastal part majority being Muslim, but then they are not so happy about it. So it takes...
I mean, I think they are not happy about it at all. Because, for example...
Even here, actually.
Okay, that's interesting.
Even the Africans here, I mean. We don't remove this.
Maybe it's because still the culture, because we're not used to this, right?
It's a lot to unlearn.
I have a queer colleague of African descent, like two of them, and one of them was like, "You're the only sensible African I've met." I'm like, and you are African? He's like, no, because they ask you, how are you a queer? How is it like you are? They're asking all of these questions, like they don't accept us. I'm like, but this is interesting, right? At the end, for me, it's like, it's human, it's normal. It's right to decide what you want to be, like who you want to be, who you want to date, who you want to marry. It's love. So this is how I see it. But of course, like you said, even as Africans, we don't accept it because we're like, these people are crazy.
It's like, a Western thing, this one, yeah.
And now you are telling me the Western are not accepting. So where do you belong?
I'm floating somewhere. I have no idea where I belong. You know, it's ridiculous. But.
So what do you think could be done, at least, to better, maybe not really belonging, but at least, but you have a voice, right?
Yeah, it helps that I have a voice, and many people are not able to do this. It saddens me, but I am glad to be the voice for people. Yeah. And I would love to have more spaces where people can actually, and more actually, maybe more research also into LGBT cases and accepting that some of these situations are actually different in some of our countries. Because let us not wait for it to get into a kill the gays bill before we start giving people protection and whatnot. And there are many, many other reasons for migration, I would say, like climate justice, for example. Climate change. Climate is one of the reasons that people really migrate, one of the major reasons. I think looking into all these things and seeing that there are different aspects that lead to migration. But as for the queer refugees and for every other aspect of people fleeing, representation, real representation. And this idea of people speaking on behalf of others, no. Go to the right people who are actually experiencing this and ask. Talk to them, get their experience from them instead of speaking for them. You know? And so maybe we can create more space like this for queer refugees and for where we can actually also express ourselves and research and get access to, because one of the other things we also don't get access to is academia, for example. Yeah. We don't get access to research. And so we also don't have history. We don't have queer history, for the queer African history. Not a lot of it is available to everybody, for example. A lot of also migration history and whatnot. So it would be good to give access to all of us because we have the capabilities, some of us, to also get into research work, to get into academia, to be able to report on what is happening, to be able to report on why we are migrating, on why there's this intersectionality of being, when you're queer and black, then it's different if you're queer and you know that the saddest thing is queer and African is actually also still at the bottom of queer, and you could be queer and African American. That's different. Okay. You are at a certain,
That's interesting.
It's just so, it's many things intertwined. We just need to work from so many levels.
Yeah, at the beginning you mentioned, like, of course, you're very active with IVS as a volunteer, and then within IVS you have this big break isolation group. So how, at which you said, like, more of giving voices further to refugee women, especially queer, I think, which is good by not catching them young, but at an
early stage.
Stages.
Arrival, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly, informing them so that they would not get lost like most of us got lost arriving, or insufficient information to be able to move forward. Yes. Tell us a bit about this big group. What do you do exactly? And so far, what impact has it done to your target group?
Okay. So BIG, which is Break Isolation Group, was started in 2019. And this was born from the need of, it is a group made up of, it's a working group made up of only refugee women. So International Women's Space itself is a group made up of women with a migrant experience, but also women without a migrant experience. So we have allies, we have Germans and whatnot who've not migrated, or people who were born here, for example. And Then we have BIG, which is then strictly only refugee women. And in this space, we amplify our own voices, speak for ourselves and take back our charge and control of our lives. And the reason for this is the women who are part of this group were also, or are still also part of the asylum process. They have been in the lagers, they've been through the isolation, hence the name break isolation. And one of the things we do that I've mentioned before is the lager visits, like going to Eisenhutenstadt, especially the main reception camps, Eisenhutenstadt, Wunstorf, and before we would go to Dubalok-Kirchheim. And in these spaces, the isolation that we have experienced, I've also experienced, is, as we mentioned, lack of information, language barrier, lack of community, and in many cases, even the freedom of movement is curtailed because you cannot leave, for example, Eisenhutenstadt for more than 48, sometimes even 24 hours. So you're usually bound. You're physically isolated in this space, but you're also mentally, culturally, communally, socially isolated, mentally, in many, many ways, spiritually also sometimes isolated. And so we reach out. Our lager visits are meant to break this isolation. We are able to, in many cases, we are not able to get into the lagers. We bring the women out, we meet, we have some sharing experiences. And from this, we are able to also gather any of the challenges that they are facing in these facilities, which will also inform us on perhaps what workshops we are able to give, we could provide for these women, maybe what political actions to take part in, because then we can organize demos, we can take part in protests, we can do some actions, we can go and even protest in front of the lager itself. And some of the workshops that we also do after this is, for example, legal workshops, because in many cases, especially maybe when you have threats of deportation, you have many women, a lot of misinformation, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear in these spaces. And so we provide, actually often we provide legal workshops, maybe once a month or twice every 2 months. And the women can come and they don't pay for this session. And then we have an open session, they get legal advice, and they can have a small session with the lawyers and seek advice. So this also goes a long way in helping them with their case. Because, again, lawyers cost money, which is something most of us don't get. We also give them information on how to get into the labor market, for example, or we assist them. We also try to connect them with people who can do Betreuung. Not Betreuung, what is it called?
Assistant.
Something like that. So Betreuung, and to go to the Ausländer office and some of these things, and we connect them to psychosocial support services. And sometimes we also just have self-care, workshops. We just go and dance, for example, because we can't always be complaining. So there are many things we organize. I am also part of a queer project. So my colleague and I are coordinating a queer project called Resilient Voices. It was born from Break Isolation Group and International Women's Space, and this is for the queer refugees, to amplify the voices, not only here for the queer folk, but also the queer folk in the global majority, And so in this case, we are also hoping to also amplify the voices of how the cases in Gambia, for example, and in Kenya, and in all these other spaces for queer folk, so that we can also maybe help in providing information of how it is also there, the situation. We do we make lager reports sometimes. This started during the COVID period because we were not able to physically go. The women could not go visit the women in the lagers. And so we did audio reports, which are found on the EVS website. And this also just tell a story or experiences or the challenges of these different lagers. So quite a lot that we do.
Amazing. Sie sagen das Unfiltered Bantaba Podcast. Das Unfiltered ist über das Leben von Geflüchteten und Migrantinnen in ihrem neuen Heimatland zu referieren. Und porträtieren. In diesem Sendung haben wir immer über unsere Erfahrungen als Migrantinnen, als Flüchtlingen diskutieren. Das Podcast ist das Thema von Geflüchteten und Migrantinnen in Berlin und in Umgebung von Berlin. Das Podcast eigentlich zeigt, dass Geflüchteten und Migrantinnen mehr sind als nur Migrantinnen und Geflüchteten. Das Podcast sammelt vielfältige Geschichten von denjenigen Menschen, die fliehen mussten und jetzt in Deutschland leben. Erfahrungen auf Flucht, Probleme des Ankommens in Deutschland und alles alltägliches Leben wird in Diskussion kommen. Außerdem, das Podcast berichtet über aktuelle gesellschaftliche Entwicklungen rum um Flucht, Asyl, Integration, Migration und aktuelle Ergebnisse zum Thema in Berlin, Deutschland und ganze Welt. Heute haben wir über das Thema Ankommen gesprochen. Wie ist das Leben in Deutschland? Wie ist als Ausländer oder als Geflüchtete, als Asylsuchende oder als Migrantinnen beim Ankommen in Deutschland? Wie divers ist die Kultur, ist die Gesellschaft? Wie bürokratisch ist das System für die Leute, die hier ankommen? Meine Gäste war die wunderbaren Annie Aradi, einer Frauen- und Queer-Aktivistin bei International Women's Space in Berlin. Vielen, vielen Dank, Anne. Okay. Finally, what would you like to share?
So many things I want to say, but I will say this.
In a minute.
Please check out the International Women's Space website, and you can look at all the work that we do. I would encourage everybody you can come and volunteer at any time. Our doors are always open. Please reach out to us. And there's so many things you could learn from each other and do together.
Okay.
Yes, let us add to the fight. We can only do this together, not alone. Yes.
From each other,
yes,
to together.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's a very nice closing. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Viewers, thank you very much for being with us. It has been an amazing 60 minutes with you guys. It is the Unfiltered Podcast. The idea of the Unfiltered Podcast is actually to talk about the lives and stories of migrants and refugees by themselves, for them, and of course, to everyone that is interested about the issues and the development of migration and refugee issues. Today we looked at the topic on arriving. How is it like arriving in Germany? How is it like arriving in Berlin? How diverse, inclusive, representative is the system, is the society for people arriving, not just for asylum seekers, refugees, but we've looked generally in different aspects. And we've seen so many loopholes, but as well advantages, cultural shocks, and so many things, and how best or better, as my guest put it, the government or players could do to making sure that people that are arriving are really arriving. Just like Anne said, I think I'm sitting in a pool. I don't know where I really belong. I think this group of people should be able to know where they belong, why they are arriving, not just physically arriving, but mentally arriving as well. That's all we have for you on Unfiltered Bantaba Podcast. Until I come your next time, join us. Follow us on social media or send us an email on info@bantabaacademy@yahoo.com. It's a goodbye from me till next time.